This was our last argument, after Patricia was handed the documents. But before we went to court, we were both pretending, playing roles for each other. I pretended that I still wanted to discuss everything, even though the coffin lid on our marriage slammed shut as soon as a private investigator showed me a photo of her kissing Bradley Jacobs. By the 5th minute of their first video recording, he was already in the grave, and I was throwing dirt at his lid. As for Patricia, I do not know what exactly she was pretending to be. Is it because her ongoing infidelity is still a legitimate subject for discussion? Is it possible that we could somehow reasonably agree to stay married while she makes love to Bradley on the side? My wife, Patricia Wilson, née Anderson, is a lawyer. Bradley is actually one of her assistants, and finding ways to be reasonable about completely unreasonable things is what she does for a living. At home, I suppose she does it on a pro bono basis. The phrase, "Matt, be reasonable," has been a constant refrain for most of our 25-year marriage. But after I handed her the documents, she added another phrase to her repertoire: fragile male ego. I mean, Matt, it's not about me or who I'm sleeping with or not sleeping with. It's about your fragile male ego. God, I hate that phrase. And of course, we didn't get too deep into that last discussion before she decided to drop it. Matt, if you could see beyond your fragile male ego, you would understand that this does not threaten you at all. She gave me her most encouraging one, the most reasonable one, a smile. I don't love him, and in a few months we will both move on. You and I can still ride off into the sunset together. I have to give Patricia her due. She is very brave. As she spoke, she fingered the stem of a glass of her favorite aged Australian Chardonnay in an oak barrel, which stood next to a manila folder on our kitchen table. The folder, in turn, contained my divorce application, as well as some of the crudest photos that the private investigator managed to take. In other words, the Titanic collided with an iceberg. The orchestra plays the anthem, "Closer, Lord, to You," and women and children are led to lifeboats. Meanwhile, Patricia says that if I am reasonable, if I can overcome my fragile male ego, we may be able to get to the port. The thing is, Patricia thinks we're still negotiating, but I don't want to decide anything anymore. I want to end the conversation. Patricia, let's stop for a second, I said, interrupting her in mid-sentence. You keep talking about my fragile male ego, claiming that if I can overcome this, then everything will be fine with us. What exactly do you mean? Under a fragile male ego? She frowned for a moment, a little offended that she had been interrupted. Well, it's very simple, Matt. You're afraid of competition. You're afraid that somehow you won't be able to match. She smiled at me again, affectionately, slightly condescendingly. But honey, you don't have to worry. You're my boyfriend, my man. Then who's Bradley? She blushed. Bradley? Well, Bradley is just a toy, like a dildo or a simulator. I'm not going to replace you or stop loving you. You have nothing to worry about. I gave her the slightly frowned, slightly dumbfounded look that husbands use when they want their wives to feel superior, usually so that we can get away with something. So, just to be clear, do you think I'm worried that you're going to stop loving me or replace me with a younger model? She nodded, her gentle smile widening. And you think I'm a little vulnerable because of that? Do you think I need to be reassured? Exactly. And, honey, you have nothing to worry about. I spoke slowly, as if trying to figure out what was going on. And in some way this fragility is connected with the fact that I am a man? She patted my hand, gently, condescending. Oh dear, it's not just you. All men have fragile egos. Her smile widened. Part of what we wives do is we support our guys. We keep you believing in yourself. I wanted to yell at her, ask her how the hell making love to a 25-year-old was supposed to support me, but I knew it would only make her dig her horn. I wasn't surprised that Patricia bought into all this "women are stronger than men" pop psychology. You've been walking around this nonsense for years. But I'm tired. We're almost at the end, and I'm tired of walking. You know, Patricia, you've been using that phrase for a long time, I said, glaring at her. I'm ignoring her. One of the things I've learned after 25 years with you is to choose my battles. But if there's one thing I want to leave you with today, it's understanding how much this whole argument is complete nonsense. She started to object, but I continued. The reason people focus on the fragile male ego is because it seems abnormal. It's like testicles. How many times have you seen a stupid video where a guy gets kicked in the balls? She nodded, intending to let me talk about it for a bit before pulling me back in. Hey lot. Yes. It's funny, at least for women, because men always seem so strong, and that alone is enough to make most men fall down and throw up. A strong, scary big man suddenly curls up into a ball, trying to catch his breath. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, but it's not funny to watch a woman in the same situation, is it? She nodded. But why not? If one person crouching in pain is ridiculous, then why isn't the other? Because it's violence. A man hitting a woman is a rapist, and a woman hitting a man doesn't? I shook my head. It doesn't matter. We've strayed from the topic. The fact is that watching a woman writhe in pain is not funny because we are taught to see women as fragile and weak. So the idea of making a woman cry is neither strange nor particularly funny. I don't understand what you're getting at. I took a deep breath. And the thing is, it's the same with the ego. When I go to work every day, my friends are my friends. They make fun of my abilities, my belly size, my thinning hair, and everything else they can find to tease me. Now imagine if that's what your friends would do to you. Imagine that you walk into an office and immediately receive comments about every area that seems vulnerable to you. How would you feel? God, she said. I can't imagine a woman doing that to a friend, and it's not over all the time. But that's exactly what happens to us big, strong men. We shrug our shoulders, throw our comment in response, and go about our business. Now I was patting her hand, gently, condescending. I wonder if she noticed. In fact, the only area where I allow myself to feel fragile and vulnerable is in this house. It is here that I take off my armor, show my delicate pink underbelly, and believe that you will not use it. What you see as my fragile male ego is me relaxing in the only place in the world where I feel like I can be fragile. Do you understand me? Patricia smiled and nodded. I saw her getting ready for another attack. But that's the point, Matt. You're safe here. You can be vulnerable. I'm not going to leave or give up what we have because of an affair. I took off my glasses and rubbed the bridge of my nose. You still don't get it, Patricia. I believed you when you said that I was the best lover in the world, even though I knew that objectively it was not true. Damn, I've only had one mistress in the last 25 years, not that much experience. I chuckled. I took your word for it, even when I realized that you were just strengthening my ego. I decided to be fragile with you because I knew I could trust you. And I'm so glad that you are. And you betrayed it. I shouted, slamming my hand on the table. Her eyes widened and she fell silent. I took a deep breath and tried to find a calm voice again. About 6 months ago, I began to notice that you are not so careful about my fragility. I noticed how you expressed yourself when I took off my shirt, how you closed your eyes when we made love. I caught sarcastic comments about going to the gym or giving up beer. She looked up at me in shock, and I continued. I noticed that you stopped talking about your day or asking about mine. I noticed that you don't come near me. Even before you started making love to Bradley, I realized that you were no longer safe for me. You weren't going to protect my vulnerability. Matt, She paused. Did the lawyer run out of words? I looked into her eyes. Firmly. They were shiny, and I'm sure mine were too. I tried to fight it, Patricia. He invited you to dinner more often, commented on your clothes. I tried to plan more vacations, more time just for us. I was trying to let you know that you're special to me. He dressed better. I started going to the gym. I was hoping you'd remember how special I was to you. I looked down at my hands. Just not now. I can't let her see the tears. I can't be vulnerable. Enough. It didn't work. You've been finding reasons to cancel dinners, reasons why we can't go on vacation. While complimenting your clothes, I could see that you were worried if I had noticed that you were dressing for him. And after I sent flowers to your office, I still didn't get a response. I looked up at her. Later, when you started fighting to avoid making love to me, I realized that I had failed. You've forgotten that I'm special, and you're already on your way to not being special to me. I've never quarreled to give up making love. I groaned. Seriously? And that's all she got out of it? Patricia, can you just be honest? At least with yourself, if not with me. You've been pushing me away for 6 months. She looked up at me for a second. but then lowered her eyes back to her hands. Charming hands. I shrugged my shoulders. Anyway, yes, my ego was fragile back then. I spent a lot of time in the office with the door closed, mourning our relationship. I tried to make a strong face while at work so that you wouldn't see how deeply you hurt me. I started looking for reasons to leave home, so as not to spend time with someone who could hurt me and who now so obviously wants to do it. She looked shocked. I smiled slightly and patted her hand again. But you'll be glad to know that my fragile ego has been healed. I found something else to do, other people who made me feel special. She raised her head. There was a question in her eyes. I chuckled. No, I didn't cheat on you, but I noticed that some women in the gym don't look like my body is pushing them away too much these days. Anyway, by the time I had the evidence and I was talking to a lawyer, you wouldn't even have noticed that my fragile male ego had ever been hurt. Are we done? That's what I thought. In the end, I said what I had to say, and I thought maybe she finally heard me. Maybe now we can move on. But no, I was married to a lawyer, and there is no such thing as a lost case. But, Matt, there was no need for that, she screamed. Yes, I admit that I have been lately distracted, but I never stopped loving you. You've always come first in my world. I'm sorry that I didn't see how fragile you were, how much I hurt you. Patricia kept talking, kept making beautiful pictures out of her words, but I didn't hear her. That word again. Fragile. She still didn't understand anything, and I realized that she probably never would. I didn't try to do it in a good way anymore. Patricia, stop it, I snapped. I think she could hear the anger in my voice, even though I was trying to hide it. I took a long, slow breath. He released the air. You still don't get it, do you? You still think it's all about my fragility, my fragile male ego, don't you? Darling, there's no shame in that. All men, all people, Patricia, we all have fragile egos, and we trust those who are dear to us to protect him. Well, yes, of course, but men are especially fragile. Well, that is. I'm going to tell you a little secret. I leaned towards her as if I wanted to confide in her. I tried my best to fight the sarcasm, but she didn't make it any easier for me. Patricia, I've spent most of the last 25 years trying to find a way to be honest with you without hurting your ego. When you asked me if this lipstick color suits you or if this dress makes you fat, I had to look for an answer that would not hurt your feelings, but also would not allow you to leave the house looking like a crazy clown or a tight sausage. Patricia blushed and her eyes widened. She was not used to such frankness. Suddenly I realized that I was laughing. Patricia, when I say things like, honey, I'm not sure if this lipstick fits this blouse, or wow, could you change your clothes? I pretended that I wasn't sure what I was saying, or that my fragile male ego was under threat. Do you know why I did it? She shook her head. That's because I didn't want to endanger your ego. This. Nonsense. Patricia fumed. I can remember several times when you explicitly said that something doesn't look very good. I chuckled. Oh, I admit that I've made mistakes from time to time, I said. I think we both remember what happened in those days when I commented on your eyeshadow. Big, offended eyes. A cold, thank you for being honest, and a week or two of negative temperature in the bedroom. I quickly realized that honesty is definitely overrated when it comes to giving my wife an opinion. So you've been lying to me for 25 years? Patricia looked like she was about to explode. It's time to end this. Let's just say I gave you a selective and carefully edited version of the truth. He said you were the most beautiful woman in the world, that your trips to the gym have been cut off from your age for a dozen years. I paid you extravagant compliments, which, like your compliments to me, were designed to show you how I see you, and, in the process, strengthen your fragile ego. My ego is not fragile. She looked at me as if I had just punched her in the chest. What? I smiled at her. You have stretch marks. The roots of your hair are turning gray, and your teeth are turning yellow. Those expensive creams that you buy don't hide the wrinkles on your face or the second chin. Dear, it's time to think about how to age gracefully, because it's no longer possible to fight it. She gasped, her eyes widened. A few punches, and it's all right on target. Jesus Christ, Matt. Patricia, remember the feeling you're having right now? Think about it. How is your ego doing? Do you feel a little fragile? Patricia turned slightly gray. Yes, she stammered. That's what you haven't been able to figure out, Patricia. I'm not blind. You're not the most beautiful woman in the world. Hell, I can probably walk out the front door and find half a dozen women in our neighborhood who are objectively more attractive than you. I looked at her again, but her face was still drawn. I saw tears on her cheeks. You're not the prettiest, the smartest, or the funniest, but that's exactly what you were to me. You were the most beautiful, the most fun, the best. Seeing all your flaws, I've also seen the life that we've lived together. You have laugh lines because we laugh together. I looked at the roadmap of your body and saw the miles we walked together. I treasured each of those miles and the footprints they left. She looked up, and it was like the last scene in a boxing movie, the one that happens right before the final knockout. She sobbed. Ken, now? What do you see now? God, I thought. She's asking for it. It would be so easy. A part of me, damn, a big part of me, she wanted to deliver a knockout blow, one that would leave her so devastated that for the next few years she would rush from bed to bed trying to prove that she still had it. And here she is, sticking out her chin, waiting for the ceiling to collapse. But that's the whole point. It's no longer a matter of delivering a knockout blow. Actually, it's not even about Patricia. She looked in the mirror, saw that time was passing, and decided that she could find the fountain of youth in a young man. And then, when she was discovered, she tried to stand up, challenging and using cunning words. I think it's clear to both of us that she's weak and small, and now he's going to be alone. As for me, I cried my tears in the car, outside my office door, in a park a mile from my house. I spent months hiding my pain from my wife while I struggled and then mourned the death of my marriage. Now I need to plan the rest of my life. The first step was to ask myself who I want to see in the mirror every morning. The guy who took the cheap shot? A guy who won some pointless competition with a weak woman who lost her life? A bully? No. I wanted to see the same person I see now. A merciful man. Nice. An honest man. I took another deep breath and covered Patricia's hand with mine again. What do I see now? Now I see the woman I spent the best years of my life with. I see the one I trusted with my fragility for as long as I could. I squeezed her hand. I see someone I'm really going to miss. She stood up, pasting a smile on her face. It was crooked, and it did not help to cope with tears. It doesn't have to be like that, she said. We can find our way back. No, we can't, I sighed. You're right about one thing, Patricia. I'm not fragile, but my trust was fragile. I will never be able to take off my armor again. I'll never be able to let you in. Maybe we could live together. We could sleep in the same bed, go on vacation, create some memories. But the thing is, I'll always be watching you. To ask if you appreciate my body. Are you comparing me in bed with someone else? Wondering if you're staying with me because you love me or just out of habit? It's not. I'm not going to live like this, Patricia. I think I have another 30 or 40 years, and I don't want to spend them with someone I don't trust, pretending that I feel safe and protected, when in fact I don't. I didn't deserve this. And honestly, if you really love me, you're not going to ask me to go through this. For all her legal skills, Patricia is pretty transparent, at least to me. I could see in her eyes that she was calculating counterarguments, checking them, looking at which ones might work. And then I saw it when she realized that it was really over. It was as if the light had gone out in her eyes. As soon as Patricia decided not to fight, the divorce went through quickly. As usual, we exchanged jewelry for tools and a TV, furniture for my partially restored Mustang. In the end, they sold the house, split everything in half, and saved a lot of money on lawyers. The most important thing about divorce is that even when it's over, it's not over yet. I still see Patricia often at our children's birthdays, anniversaries, and Christmas parties. Sometimes she brings a date with her, and I usually have a woman on my arm. It's been the same woman for the last year or so, and I can see from the look in Patricia's eyes that she understands what that means. I try not to gloat, but sometimes my ego does. Well, it may be a little fragile.